Welcome everybody to this presentation about robust collateral management. Today we want to look at what robust collateral management really is, why it is important today, and how it can be achieved for a financial institution. Let me start by telling you something about myself. My name is Martin Schumacher. I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer at Foxeye, and I'm going to be the presenter today. Let's look at the agenda. We're going to start with looking at why today's collateral management processes at financial institutions are typically not ready for the challenges that lie ahead. Then we'll look at what robust collateral management really is, then at the alternatives of achieving a robust collateral management, and in the end we're going to look at what is the best approach for a financial institution to come to a decision. So let's start with today. Let's start with the challenges that are ahead. First of all, we have the global OTC derivatives reform, and that has a huge impact on collateral management in general. The margin levels increase dramatically. This is mainly because of the initial margin requirements if you do central clearing for OTC derivatives. But not only the levels increase, also the margin call volumes increase dramatically. From a monthly or weekly exercise, they are transforming into at least daily exercise per clearing broker, or even an intraday exercise at clearinghouses. That puts a high pressure on any liquidity management processes of banks. And it also puts in high pressure on the operational efficiency. Then you also have the bilateral collateralization. It will become mandatory because there is already a global draft standard from the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision and the IOSCO. And that will mandate a mandatory exchange of collateral for non-centrally cleared deals. It will include variation margin and exchange of initial margins. And the qualitative impact study that has been conducted, it expects an initial margin requirement of up to 700 billion euros. And then there is also a shortage of collateral supply ahead. Let's look at that. We have increasing Basel III capital requirements, and that will tie eligible collateral because it can't be used as collateral anymore if it has to be retained as capital. Then we also have lots of rehypothecation constraints, and that limits the flow of collateral. For example, all the collateral that is being pledged at CCPs can't be used for rehypothecation anymore. And then we also have, obviously, the sovereign debt crisis, and that will decrease the overall volume and value of collateral assets available. And that increased demand that we've seen before, meeting this shortage of supply, is what is commonly known as the collateral crunch. And existing collateral management processes, they typically show a variety of inefficiencies. Let's look at them. They typically are cash only, which means they can't post any securities as collateral because the processes do not support that. And they are highly fragmented across the institution and departments, and very manual. There is no enterprise-wide inventory of assets, and also no inventory of agreements across the enterprise. From a system perspective, what we typically see is that there are proprietary MS Excel frameworks being used instead of highly sophisticated enterprise collateral management systems. And there is no possibility in those systems for any what-if scenario analysis or for forecasting collateral requirements. And also what we see is that inconsistent and outdated derivatives pricing is making problems. That means that things like OAS discounting are not in place, for example. So what we've done is we've prepared a little checklist to assess the status of an institution and its readiness for the challenges ahead. Let's look at them. So question number 1 is about this new cleared OTC derivative business and the collateral management issues that come along with it. Are processes and systems ready to handle that? Then about posting securities as collateral, because cash is the most expensive collateral to post, and given the new demand, it should be a possibility for a bank to deliver securities as collateral as well. Then there is the question whether there is a complete inventory of eligible assets that can be posted as collateral across the business units, across the entities. Then there is a question whether it's at all driven by the front office or whether it's still a pure back office task. Then it's a question about the optimization strategies, whether those are already in place, whether a bank can forecast collateral demand and consider that within the liquidity plan. And then it's about automation, because based on the high volumes, you need to have some kind of process automation that are backed by proper technology. And basically, if you have to answer no to any of these questions, you should really carefully look at whether your collateral management processes should be improved. So what is robust collateral management then at all? So when would we consider a collateral management approach to be robust? Basically, it should enable a 360-degree view. What does that mean? You should know all your collateral assets that are available across all the business lines. That's key. And then you can match that collateral available against the current and projected cash flows out of all the collateralized transactions that you have across your institution. And when doing that, you have to consider that collateral that you have already pledged or transferred to your counterparties, obviously. And based on that complete 360-degree view, such an robust collateral management solution has to support all the processes around collateral management. What are these? Well, collateral management has to cover a lot of different aspects. In the graph on the right side, we've prepared some of them. Those all comprise a proper collateral management solution. So it consists out of many different use cases requiring lots of different features and functions from any solution. And in the next slides, we'll focus on a subset of these very important aspects of robust collateral management and the challenges that we see with them. We have enterprise-wide collateral asset inventory. We've mentioned that a couple of times already. So the eligibility of collateral assets varies strongly depending on the counterparty, the type of contract. So if you look at exchange-traded derivative business, if you look at the OTC clear derivative business, if you look at central banks, they all have very different eligibility criteria for the assets they will be accepting. But in general, it's a huge variety of assets that can be used as collateral. The problem is that those assets, because they are very different, are not managed in a common pool. Instead, they are spread at least across different silos in the institution, and more often even spread across multiple systems, which make it hard to get an overview. So establishing a central asset inventory, that's one key challenge that is required in order to have a robust collateral management, and that typically also requires robust data interfaces between all the various systems. The same is true for the collateral agreements, but the challenge is even higher, because those are collateral agreements that typically involve lots of paperwork with hundreds of terms and conditions. And the ISTA even goes so far as to say that those collateral agreements could even be seen themselves as complex derivatives with an underlying basket of derivatives and exotic options. So it's all very complex, and they are rarely represented in systems in a really structured way. But if you want to have a robust collateral management, you require systems that are capable of capturing all these agreements with all the complexity and in a very structured way. You have additional challenges based on quality assurance, because if you want to base your decisions on that system, you better make sure that all the data that you feed in there is quality assured, and you also need to keep that data up to date. For example, if you look at eligibility criteria of assets, if you look at haircuts, this is something that changes. Maybe not daily, but at least It changes from time to time, and you need to make sure you keep track of those. Next topic is collateral tracking. What is that? It's a challenge to know which asset has been given as collateral or has been received as collateral, and you need to know for which collateral agreement that was, and you need to know based on which margin call it has been given or received, and you need to know that at any given point in time. You need to include there collateral transactions that may not be settled already because you've initiated them today or you've initiated them yesterday and settlement is not through. So a robust collateral management needs to be able to look through the whole settlement process of a bank. And then you have collateral optimization strategies. Collateral optimization in general involves a broad range of measures. They're all aimed at minimizing costs. For example, you might consider to have exchange-traded derivatives for certain use cases instead of OTC derivatives, because that is a business of swap futures which is taking off right now as we speak. You can seek increased margin efficiency through cross-margining, so that means that you combine your portfolios of, for example, exchange-traded derivatives with your portfolios of OTC derivatives and make sure that your margin requirements get down because of combining the risk and therefore reducing your initial margin requirements there. Whenever possible, you should utilize rehypothecation of collateral received, which means you can use that collateral that you have received to collateralize other transactions of yours. And then in the end, obviously, an optimization strategy is then to deliver the cheapest possible collateral to each individual counterparty. And that is called the cheapest to deliver optimization. How does that work? You have to utilize algorithms that will propose collateral movements, which ultimately result in the cheapest to deliver collateral. Those require a very granular price tag for each collateral asset, because you need to tell the system what is the price tag for your types of collateral, and that on a very granular level. So cash is typically the most expensive one, but your accounting currency might be the least expensive of those. And then if you look at government bonds, those would be the next category, but even within government bonds you would have AAA rated ones, and those would be more expensive than those with a lower rating. And then you would also have to distinguish between durations, so you need to do that on a very granular level. You should also consider additional preferences through flexible rules engines. For example, if you want to have a situation where you do not want to deliver AAA rated government bonds to a certain counterparty, you should have the flexibility to enter a rule that avoids doing that. So in the end, this is how it could look like. You have your optimization algorithm in the middle, and you have fed into it the eligibility criteria of your counterparties. You need to have your asset inventory in place. You need to have those funding price tags attached. You need to know the current allocation. You need to know all the margin calls. Have your contract inventory ready, and obviously you will need market data for that. And in the end, what you get is a proposal of collateral movements that will result in delivering the cheapest to deliver collateral to each counterparty. And that might also include a reallocation, which means to take collateral that you've pledged earlier and take it back from one counterparty in order to deliver it to another one and replace that collateral at the first counterparty. Then there is also the topic of valuation, which is a challenge. As always, you need to have a precise and quality assured market data and well-calibrated pricing models. And in collateral management, you will need that especially for pricing collateral assets as well as underlying collateral derivative contracts. And you need that to be able to validate incoming margin calls and to generate outgoing margin calls. And you also need that to do what-if simulations. And you will need those simulations to have a robust liquidity management in place. And a particular challenge also arises in initial margin calculations, because that involves typically, if you want to do a potential future exposure calculation, it involves complex Monte Carlo simulations involving lots of computing power, and you also need to make sure that you have OS discounting in place. And the next challenge is the real-time front office support, because a robust collateral management is not a pure back office function. You need to involve your front office. The front office has to understand the current collateral situation and collateral implications on any front office activity. On a pre-deal basis, they must consider collateral implication in their pricing and in their general decision making. But ideally, such a system can also help the front office to assist in finding the least expensive settlement location for a deal. That could, for example, mean that if you do a new OTC deal, it makes a huge difference if you do it with clearing broker A versus clearing broker B versus clearing house C, because there are different fees involved and there is also different implication of that new deal on initial margin requirements, and that should be considered. Finally, such a solution should also have a flexible workflow support, because we are in a challenging and frequently changing environment, whether it's from a regulatory point of view or from a market point of view. And such a robust collateral management solution should be flexible to adapt to those new requirements. If you look at an example, processing a bilateral collateral agreement is completely different from processing margin calls from a clearing broker or a CCP. And currently we do not see any common standards in that respect, but it's expected that those standards will be established over time. So a system must be flexible to adapt to those changed situations at very low implementation costs. So now we have looked at what a robust collateral management really is. Now let's look at the alternatives to achieving such a robust collateral management. Generally, there are two approaches. There's in-house versus outsourced, where an in-house solution obviously means that you have a robust collateral management department of specialists in your own institution, whereas it's outsourced, where to a certain extent you externalize those collateral management activities to a third-party service provider. Challenge one lies in comparing the pros and cons of each approach and to align them with the institution's specific requirements. And the challenge two lies in comparing the actual systems available on the market and comparing the actual service providers available on the market. The challenge is, if you choose an in-house approach, really lies in investing into technology and resources. You need to have operational expertise. And if you have knowledge gaps there, you need to close them either by recruiting experts or through training exercise. You need to select and implement the right technology, and that in itself is a complex project. The result is independence, flexibility, and if you do the right, you get a competitive advantage. Another alternative is an outsourced approach. Outsourcing even a mission-critical function to a third party is possible. It's attractive where resources and budgets are tight. What you get is a quicker time to market, although you need to understand that there is still a lot of work to do, because you still need to integrate those service providers with your internal systems and workflows. The challenge here is really to find a trustworthy partner. And what you typically do not get is a competitive advantage out of it, because whatever the service provider can do very good for you, he can also do very good for your competitors. So what is now the best approach to come to a decision here? As always, it starts with the requirements. You have to know them. The requirements for robust collateral management need to be aligned with the future business model of the institution. Those requirements are the basis for composing a questionnaire for any system provider or service provider. And you have to follow a proper requirements gathering process for them, and you have to ensure that you have stakeholder commitment there. Then you have to compare those solutions and services through a professional evaluation process. How would that work? You have to do a proper preparation and planning phase. you have to design professional RFIs, request for informations, where you ask all the necessary questions aligned with your requirements to a long list of vendors. Then you have to do intensive demos and workshop with a mid-list of vendors, because you can never believe what those vendors write in their marketing brochures. You really have to see those systems in action with the use cases that are relevant for your own institution. Then you need to do solid business case development with a thorough cost-benefit analysis and a formal RFP process with a short list of vendors. Then you have to consolidate and present the results, and that gives you everything you need for a final decision-making process. What Foxhead can offer here is Fast Track. It's our fastest way to educated decision-making. So what is that? It's a methodology that allows you to rapidly, within just 4 days, assess new business topics. It allows you to gain an overview of those topics, identify the impact on your organization, and define a plan of action. And what you can do is you can optimally utilize the advantages of an independent consultant while doing that, so that you can properly identify all the stakeholders across your organization, know their views on the topic, and know their commitment to that topic. And it also allows you to establish a consistent terminology throughout the institution for those new topics. And you can find further information and a detailed brochure on what exactly Fast Track for Collateral Management can offer on our website www.foxhead.net. Thank you very much for your attention. Finally, I would like to invite you to engage with our experts via our online business networks. So what you can do is you can join our online group Foxnet on LinkedIn or Crossing and collaborate with us on hot topics and our publications. And if you have questions to this presentation about robust collateral management, please feel free to drop those questions right within Foxnet. So thank you very much for your attention, and see you next time.